Good morning, everybody. I hope that you all had a good weekend and are all looking forward to the week ahead. So, if we have a look at what happened last week on the markets, we saw a predominantly flat time from Monday to Thursday, or Tuesday to Thursday in the US, since it was a holiday on Monday. But then Friday, we saw a bit of a drop. Overall, we saw the Dow was down 2.1% last week. That was all the losses came on the Friday. The Nasdaq was down 2.3% for the week, down 2.5% on Friday alone. We saw the FTSE down 1.7% and the DAX also down 1%. Most of those losses are all coming on Friday, and I'll explain more afterwards. The Nikkei was up marginally, 0.3%, and in Shanghai, the Chinese exchange was up 0.4%. Now, one of the major reasons why we saw the fall on Friday was this constant interest rate talk about whether or not there's going to be a rate hike in September. What happened was one of the most dovish of the Fed committee, Eric Rosengren, he had suggested that we may see a rise in September, despite the markets thinking that that wasn't going to happen. Again, personally, I don't think we're going to see a rise until after the elections, because clearly the elections are also another factor which is going to have an impact on the market, and they don't want too many things going on at once. So I think we're going to see an interest rate rise or talk of new interest rate rises once we know who the next president's going to be. Perhaps the fact that the Trump campaign is gaining momentum is also a factor in why we saw those markets come down a little bit on Friday. And of course, also with good reason, we probably saw quite a bit of selling going on, given the recent gains that we've seen. Certainly year to date, most people should be up sort of 15 to 20% on their shares. So you've got to realise some of that. On the currency side of things, again, we saw a little bit of movement based on the aforementioned issues. The euro strengthened against the US dollar from 111 to 112. We saw the British pound remain pretty flat for the week, finished at 133. The Aussie dollar actually finished flat despite seeing it gain some during the week. It went up to 77 cents and finished down where it started at about 75.5. And we continue to see a ridiculously strong Japanese yen. It went from 104 to 102. In fact, although I tend to stay away from the Japanese markets, the equity markets, the yen is seen as somewhat of a safe haven when it comes to currencies, and perhaps having a little bit in there pre the US election, when there is stories that if Trump gets in, we may see a devaluation of the US dollar, then perhaps that's not a bad hedge to have, just in case. So, if we look at what else is happening, we got. I was reading something the other day, or watching something on the television rather, about artificial intelligence. You all know that one of my favourite themes is technology, and the four largest investors, or the five largest, along with IBM, in artificial intelligence are Apple, Google, Facebook, and Microsoft. You often hear me talk about those four stocks, as well as Amazon, as being, core to anyone's portfolio. And as with artificial intelligence, as with many new technologies that come along, these guys are in a position to swallow them up. And technology is ultimately always going to grow. Man's ability to innovate is beyond belief. So on the sporting front this weekend, we saw a match, the most expensive match in history when it came to the cost of the players involved, which was the Manchester Derby. A total of £530 million sterling of players on display there. And as a football fan, it's worth it. What a fantastic game. Entertainment, end to end. And whilst a lot of people talk about the overvaluation of some of these players and the game itself, at the end of the day, it brings that sort of entertainment to probably more than 1 billion people on Saturday. So therefore, there's value, understanding why that value is out there. On the boxing front, you all know I'm a big boxing fan. We saw Kell Brook give a great effort against Golovkin, but just simply overpowered in the big fight of the weekend. So to close with, as you know, should be just on my 5 minutes today. I always finish with a little quote, and this one comes from the famous and one of the greatest fund managers of all time, Peter Lynch, from Fidelity, who managed the portfolios there in the late 70s and 80s. And one of his comments was, Behind every stock is a company. Find out what it does. Sounds obvious, I know, but I think sometimes too much people are caught up on the price of what something is without really sort of, understanding what the underlying company does and whether or not you like, agree, believe in the underlying. That's the key. Hey, have a good week, everybody. Anything you need, just give us a shout. Cheers. Bye.